time to talk Survivor. We dropped the 4 and kept the 2. And now you've come to get our take, so this is what we'll do. John will make himself laugh, Andy's talking just won't stop. The backup hosts, they're adequate, but at least this song's a bop. For reasons undetermined, we're still cutting this song short. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am John, my co-host is Andy, and I'm going to do my best to deliver this podcast without as much emotion as I've been podcasting with for these past few weeks. It's time for me to really, buckle down and keep it more rational and less passionate. Andy, what do you think about that? Is that a good angle for us to take on this podcast?
I don't know if old Johnny Hart on his sleeves can pull that off. What we know about you is that everything you do is just guided by your emotional reaction to things.
That's right. I mean, I'm just a ball of emotions over here. I'm on 10 at all times, just wearing my heart on my sleeve as I do. So let's talk about season 42, episode 10. 10. I should write these things down instead of every week going, really doubting myself if I'm getting the right one here.
I guess maybe I should write it down on the list of things what we talk about.
Or not. It's fine.
Somebody should write it down. And what's important to note is that no one does.
No one does. It would take 5 seconds of effort and neither of us does it. Anyway, episode 10. Let's start off with the basics here. Did you enjoy this one?
Oh, yeah. I liked it.
Really?
I liked it a lot. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I thought it was fine. It was slightly above the level of fine. Like it was a fine and a half. Just, it felt like this season's been cruising along at about a baseline level, like a background elevator music level where it's like inoffensive. It's definitely happening. You're not disliking it, but you're not in love. Like this one, it felt okay.
No, I'm fully in love. This is everything I want out of Survivor.
Okay.
And it's for one very specific reason. We'll get into it very quickly because I'm the person who decides the order in which we talk about things.
Sure.
But listeners at home might be able to figure out why, given my own interests and predilections in Survivor.
Sure. So let's dive into why. Because I'm assuming that you are talking about your boy Omar. Or Omar, sorry.
Yeah. Everything about that guy is amazing. First off, he is Canadian.
Yes.
Secondly, he appreciates that pineapples are great on pizza. And third, he is completely owning this game. Just the thorough domination of things. And that's what I'm here to see. I don't care about balance. I don't care if other people look bad. I want to see one person coming up with moves and executing them and making everybody their puppets. That's what I like out of Survivor, and that's what we're getting out of my soft-spoken, virginal Canadian boy.
With the big ostrich on his shirt too.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all. This is it. This is what I'm here
it's
for.
Everything.
Already I know if Omar, and we're going to get into this more as we just talk about it, if he can somehow go on to win this season, that he will be one of my favorite winners of all time. It's already there. It's already lining up, and I'm all there for it.
Oh, damn. Yeah, you like the people with the clearly identifiable items of clothing too.
Absolutely.
That is
the main reason.
Yeah.
It's because of the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. It's said he's got to play to your archetypes that you enjoy. the obvious clothing choices. So yeah, I'm guessing then that you enjoyed his plan to take out High in this episode.
It was so amazing. From the moment that the seed drops, and it drops in his lap,
yes.
Right? Mike, clearly agitated about what's happening, just kind of puts the intro to Omar. It's not even that much. Just kind of like, hey, did you feel railroaded by that? And somebody else could have been like, nah, man, it was my move, which he says to us, which is another part of why I love it.
Yep.
Is not just that he's doing everything, but he is orchestrating it for us in a delightful way. No, Omar right away is like, ding! This is an opportunity, and he does not let that opportunity pass. Again, another thing I love about Survivor, find every edge. Don't wait for opportunities to come your way. Make them, and when they do, seize the moment. And yeah, just from that moment it's like, oh wow, I guess he's going against High. And then throughout, the only thing that made me think it wouldn't be successful is it just seemed too easy. Which he says himself in the interviews. It's perfect. I love it.
Yes. And I thought that exact same thing. Like the quick reaction that he has, because, you know, you only have that like half second to parse out what your reaction to that should be, right? And he immediately comes up with the exact correct reaction, which is like, oh, hang on, I have a chance to drive a wedge right here, and I may as well take it, right? It's really, he's planting the seed that obviously blooms very quickly because they get rid of high in this episode. But just that he saw that opening and immediately took it, didn't like weigh on it, try to come back to it. Because like if he'd like said, oh, no, I mean, it was fine, or tried to take credit, like, yeah, you're right. I don't think Mike reacts to that. So there's some element of him also recognizing the type of person that Mike is to know exactly how to drive that wedge, right? Because if you're saying like, oh, yeah, I felt uncomfortable too, you're relating to Mike on a level that he'll appreciate. And that was masterful play.
Well, even more, he just kind of bounced it back to Mike. It's like, well, I get the sense. And I know I don't like that you feel that way. Like, it's just such tremendous emotional intelligence. And that's the way Omar's been doing it throughout. And it, yeah, I like dominance in all forms. So this, yeah, phrasing.
Yeah. Got to get a safe word in here.
But yeah, it's like that. He feels what the person needs from him. And then he's that. And it was just fantastic because he doesn't push in that. Like, it wasn't from that moment, well, let's get rid of high. It's just he was able to give what Mike needed at that moment, and that left the door open for the his volley later on. And it's just like, if he just like, oh no, it's okay, Mike. No, I think what he did was right. Then Mike probably just gets over it. But because he justifies Mike's feelings in that moment, Mike gets to live in those feelings for a while, and then he gets to exploit it later. So,
well, and that's the exact thing too, is that not only that, but there's the added benefit of Mike then feels like it's him leading the charge to get high out, right? Whereas really, Omar's behind the scenes like, yeah, I just pushed you down this path, and I'm like, yeah, following behind you, when really I was the one that put you on this road to begin with. But Mike absolutely thinks that, you know, this is him like realizing, no, I've got to take high out. And he thinks this is his move when it's very much orchestrated for him.
Echoed in the beginning of the episode when High was very sure that the move to get rid of Roxroy was his move. When no, it was Omar's move. At the very least, it's both their move. But of course, as it's phrased for us, we see Omar approach High about it, not the other way around. But no, High is convinced that that was his idea all along, and it was the best move to do, and fantastic everything. And this is how it's been working for Omar, and why I feel really good in believing that it will continue to work for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some element, like, from a, person that's watched this show long enough, like, you do get a little worried when they seem too pleased with themselves, right? Like, from a storytelling perspective, like, when they start showing that a little too often, you start to get a little nervous, right? But at the same time, I agree with you. I think he's just been, like, socially dominant, and because of his skills at reading what people want and need. Yeah,
and you get a little nervous if you're rooting for them. I love it. I love when they're like, hey, I'm awesome. I have no problem with ego. And it's especially refreshing in the package of Omar, because his whole shtick, the reason why he's able to get away with this, is the reason why nobody is seeing, the silent assassin work, is that he doesn't come off as like really cocky and all of that. If he wins a challenge, people are like, oh, great job, Omar. He hasn't, but like theoretically, they won't resent him for it, because everybody thinks that Omar is just their fun, quiet friend. He's the guy who's like, oh, good for you, you're a virgin, or, who's sharing that religion with him. Like, I think even those scenes are just showing all of his social gaming. And so, yeah, I mean, so for me, it's actually more fun that while he's doing all of that, he's also coming to the camera like, hey. Like when Shan was at her most fun, was when she was talking about, like, singing her song and all of that.
Yes. And I'm enjoying the fact that, we get to see both sides of his act, whereas obviously the other players are only seeing one. So it makes Survivor more fun when you get let behind the curtain and see how these players are thinking about their game. I do think that, long term, Omar might be a little overconfident And I worry, again, just because of some narrative cues that I've gotten. I think just from a game perspective, like he's been great, and I'm also confident in rooting for him. Him and one other person that we'll get to later. But really, yeah, he's been just impressively dominant in a season loaded with advantages, and he's had none. Like, he's very much the Sandra role, right? Like, you can drop whatever trinkets you want. Sandra's just going to Sandra. Omar's just going to Omar.
Yeah, and in this episode, he also gained knowledge of some trinkets that he wasn't unaware of.
Yep.
Lindsay informed him about the amulet, which is now a little bit more powerful, and he has that knowledge. He knows about Maryanne. Well, he knows about Maryanne's extra vote. He, of course, does not know about her idol anymore. We'll get into that. But yeah, like there's a lot of nervousness going around. Like, ooh, this is just a bit too much. And for me, it's like, come on, people, just live a little. You know, could it fail? Yes, everything could fail in Survivor. But let's stop, wishing that people do, less awesome things because it might not work out for them. What Omar is doing is he's setting up the conditions for him to succeed. So I don't know if he needed to expend that capital. I don't know if he needed to do that move. For me, right now, he has been having to, because he keeps separating people from who their alliances would be. And everybody doesn't have anywhere else to go but to Omar. It's pretty remarkable in that sense. So, yeah, like, was it too much to keep Maryanne and get rid of, who was it, Lydia? No, that was what isolated High into believing Omar was his big ally. And then now he's got Mike as his big ally, who Mike has no one else. Maybe, I guess, Jonathan a bit, but Jonathan is Omar's, So it's like, I feel like to win, this is what he needs to do. Will it work out? Let's find out. But another player that everybody right now, like watching when they were playing this, kind of aggressive, but in a much different way, and also like confident game to the camera, like, oh no, they can't win. You can't win with that kind of high wire act. These are the cues that would tell you that they're not going to win. Is Tony and Kagian. So get on board, people. When I see somebody playing hard and like, I think they can do it. Am I going to predict it? No, because I don't do that anymore. It's not fun for me. But I'm not going to like concern troll Omar's moves anymore. Or at all. I haven't yet. I'm just going to enjoy him.
So, like, yeah, I think in a normal circumstance, you might be like, well, if he's letting all these people think that they're running, like in this episode, Mike probably thinks he ran that vote, right? And we, of course, know not entirely. And then you might worry that once it gets to the jury phase, if he's in the final three, Omar's going to have to say, like, oh, by the way, I was doing shit. Like, you guys might have thought it was you, but also, like, this is what happened. And it's sometimes hard to pull back the credit in that way. But I think because of the connections that Omar has with these people, I don't see it being all that hard for him to get jury votes, right? Like, just the connections that he has with people. I think you can build on that and say, like, hey, you know what? That was our move. That wasn't, like, he can frame it in a way that's going to make people be like, oh yeah, you know what? He was working with me when we took out High or whoever it might have been. Like, people are going to be like, oh yeah, that was us. And I think that it's going to pay off for him if he makes it to final three.
I don't think he ever has to let people know that he's Kaiser Sose in order to win, because frankly, it's not usually a close competition in the end.
True.
He just needs to be sitting next to people who don't really have a counter argument for him, and people will assign him credit because they like him and he'll feel more strategic. That happens a lot. Adam or I already forgot her name, who won last year. Even
Erica.
We're gonna talk about her. Erica. I mean, they might have played fine games. I don't know. But the people next to them, those games weren't respected at all. So then it's like, oh no, Erica was sure playing. Not like you, Snake Deshaun, or young idiot Xander. So that's all he needs. And that's generally how it works, is to be sitting next to two other people that won't get credit. So he won't even have to, pull back the curtain and let everybody know that he was manipulating them the whole time. He just has to be like, yeah, no, I've been playing a really strong game. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, Omar, you were playing a really strong game. Look, he's still there. My buddy Omar. I can see it all. And if it doesn't happen, well, I don't care. I'd rather him play awesome and lose than just try to hang around and hope it works out.
For sure. I mean, go full speed ahead and just, if your legs get cut out from under you, so what?
But, do you think he would go home next week? who's who's turning it around that quickly on him? 'Cause right now, it kind of feels like everybody in the game practically needs him. And so unless they all get together and talk and realize that, which is always the risk, but I don't see it happening with this particular group.
Right. And at the very least, I feel like all of them have that level of working relationship with him where, you know, he can say to Maryanne, like, you know, look, I pushed to keep you around. And he can say to Lindsay, like, look, we've been together since the beginning. And he can say to Mike, I helped you take out High last week because, you know, I want you to feel comfortable and blah, blah. Like, he has these this like groundwork that he's laid with all these different people, and he can call upon and say, look, we're tight, you know, like you might hear some other things, but you and me though, we're tight. And I think it probably flies, right? Like he's got the demeanor and the actual behaviors and actions to back up what he's telling them. He's got a story to sell to everyone that I think they would accept.
Yeah, like I think Drea thought it was her move to get rid of Hyde. You know, and she was very happy that was happening. The guy who, you know, voted out Roxroy. Romeo, what can Romeo do without talking to, you know, Omar? He's the only guy talking to him, you know? And yeah, Lindsay, when she wants to get rid of Jonathan, she's fed up with him. She goes to Omar. She tells Omar about her advantages. Like, he is the piece. And I think, like, if you kind of just look at the remaining people, who's going to be that one to really see that he's the one behind this? Like, I think High might have been able to see it, but High was high on his own supply so much. Tori, maybe. Apparently she was weirdly observant about certain things. She's not herself. Maybe Drea, you know, she is, you know, she sits back and watches. Maybe she'd be able to, you know, spot it. But I think Romeo could, but, you know, Romeo now, like, again, Omar's his guy. Yeah,
Romeo can't muster the votes, even if he can see it.
Yeah. But, like, do you think Maryanne or Lindsay or Jonathan or Mike are going to spot him?
Nope.
Like, I think he's sitting good now.
I do, too.
Obviously, the game can turn anytime. Next week, he could go because he, you know, solves the money haul problem the wrong way. We'll talk about that later. But I'm not that worried. You know, if he doesn't win because, you know, he loses a fire-making challenge or because people, at a certain point, it's recognized that he's better than everybody else, well, man, that's just Survivor. But you know, you can only be great, but so much.
I take it from all this that you do not think it should have been Jonathan this episode.
No, I don't know if it should ever be Jonathan, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're Omar. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just easy to take out Jonathan if you need to, barring an immunity run, which we've established before. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to have the skills in all the random games necessary to go on a late game immunity run.
I mean, he's still only won one.
Right. And even if it happens, I don't feel like Jonathan doesn't feel like a lock to win if he makes it to final three. So it's not even that big of a threat.
No, like you just keep undercutting him the way it's happening. And these people aren't going to vote for him. Now, he's not going to be a no vote finalist. I think if he's at the end, he's got Roxroy's vote. But yeah, it's easy to undermine his vote. Frankly, yeah, if I'm Omar, keep Jonathan around because that's like two shots to the end for you. Either, you know, you win the immunity and get to pick, or he does and he picks you. You know, like that's the relationship you should be working towards, that you are Jonathan's number one, which shouldn't be hard. Like, honestly, the only thing I think that could prevent that is Mike. Because before, the thing that could have prevented that is Lindsay, but Lindsay clearly has no interest in being that, and you know that as Omar, so you could use that. Jonathan wins the fire making as long as it's not against you. You know, that's the one problem. That's the one reason why it can make sense to get rid of somebody with physical dominance, is that like that's a spot. Even if they're not a winner, that's a spot, one less spot for me.
Yep.
But I feel like Jonathan will be working for you as Omar. But even more important than that, I think it was really important for Omar that High go now. Because that lie with Mike has a time limit.
It does.
You know?
Yeah, the clock starts ticking as soon as you've laid that groundwork, which is why, like, it had to be him on this vote, right? Like, strike while the iron's hot. Mike is, like, out for blood. You've got Drea on board, wants to do it too. Like, do it now, you know? Like, and he said, it seems almost too easy. Yes, but it also needs to be done. So just take it while it's easy.
Yeah, because all it takes is Mike simmering down a bit and them having a real conversation. And then, like, it's a flat-out lie. It's not even a misinterpretation or anything you can spin and be like, I never said that. And again, maybe Mike doesn't believe you because that's exactly the sort of thing you'd lie about. Whereas the thing that Omar lied about, well, no, that sounds too realistic because you tell a good lie,
right.
not a bad lie. But, yeah, if they just kind of patch things up, then you're sunk. Like, there was risk in that play. I just don't mind the assumption of risk to get what you want in this game, but while that risk was out there, get rid of it because that risk is gone now. Like that, he got rid, completely away with that lie.
Yep.
So yeah, no, Jonathan isn't doing anything against you. The only reason, like, if it was Jonathan, it's because everybody wants it to be Jonathan, and there's no reason to save him. But everybody wanted it to be High, except for Lindsay, kind of wanted it to be Jonathan. So no, you've done the murder, get rid of the evidence.
Exactly. He buried the evidence immediately after. So good job by him. High's downfall here was kind of interesting because up until now, he's been playing a relatively solid game. I mean, we talked about some areas where, he didn't necessarily drive the boat or where he stepped back, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it would have ultimately worked for him, but he seemed a little bit more confident in his game than the edit suggested that he should have been. Where do you think it went wrong for High?
Last week. And we didn't get into this enough during the podcast, I think, because we had a lot of other subjects to cover.
Sure.
And then when we were talking about it, we were largely talking about our amusement of Roxroy's failed male alliance plan.
Good.
Yeah, great times. But that was a disastrous vote for High. And he should have been listening when Mike told him so. Because that's when it all fell apart. Mike was not comfortable with it, and he didn't notice that. Now, sometimes it's tough. Mike is saying, no, it's fine, and you can believe people. But if he had the emotional intelligence of an Omar, he might have picked out that it's like he's saying it, but he's not. And when he's raising this objection, it means he doesn't want to do it. And it's not worth it. The whatever advantage is to be found for getting rid of Roxroy because he wants to do this all-male alliance versus getting rid of Romeo, who wants to vote me out. So it's like, I gotta say, this is pretty close. It's not worth rocking the boat over because, yeah, it made Mike uncomfortable, and you don't know how your other alliance partner, Drea, is going to take it. And apparently from exit interviews, he said that, like, he actually had already told her that there's like that Roxroy's trying to form an all-male alliance and, we might need to take him out. But clearly, of course, they did not have time to actually talk about that's what we're going to do because they were separated. And what Mike was saying, if we do this, then our alliance is going to be pissed off with us. And High was just like, no, I can do this. This is awesome. This is great. And he was wrong, man. That move made everybody, really be on alert for High. In a way, and then he was, and that's why he was gone. What do you think?
Yeah, and it was a bad read because I think you kind of have to be able to judge the cast that you're playing with, and there are certainly casts that we've had where you could get away with something like that, right? Like people will just gladly shift alliances. They don't take anything personally. They get that like it's a game and it evolves, and you just have to make the best move. Not all casts are like that, right? Like Roxroy, clearly not that type of guy. Mike does not seem to be that type of guy. And you're just not reading who you can work with, right? You're just coming in with a plan like, oh yeah, I'll do this and this and this. You're playing the Daryl Morey game, right? It's just everything is assets and you're completely leaving out the actual people involved in the game. And it bit him in the ass because, you needed to recognize that this is not the millennials versus Gen X crowd. That, the millennials in that season were like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Let's just gun at each other. It's fine. You couldn't do that here. There are certain people that won't play that way. Romeo probably would. Omar probably would. But you can't just enforce that with everybody else. You have to read the crowd.
Yeah, and like before last week, High strategy was sound. Like I was praising it that it's like, let's have the stronger players stick together so that they won't have to turn on each other. He correctly thought of himself that way because that's, as soon as people start like, oh, High's getting dangerous, bam, it's like, yes, that guy is dangerous. He's too smart. So he was one of those players. Well, when you get to what Roxroy was proposing, the all-male alliance, well, obviously that doesn't really align with what High wants to do long-term, But short term, it's the same concept. It's, strong players stick together. Just in Roxroy's mind, of course, that's all men. So I don't know why, like, it suddenly led to, like, this panic for High when it's just like, okay, he's not coming for me. I could, like, his reaction should have been, I can work with this. It's not that far out of my framework. And then I'll just, put it back to my framework once we get rid of, again, the guy who was trying to get rid of you. The guy who you got into a fighting match with, the day prior to this vote. Whereas for Omar, the idea of like the all-male alliance and the idea of like all the power players, that's not really Omar's game. So it makes sense for him to want to break it up, especially because Romeo is an asset for him. And Roxroy, with the way he's thinking, the way he wants to plan, isn't going to be. That's not going to fit Omar's MO. So just like last week, was a misstep for High, and it almost felt like it was just like he wanted to make a move. Like, Romeo's easy. This is showing that I'm a player. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, in contrast to this week, right? Like Omar says at a certain point, like, this is almost too easy. Like, should I be taking out Jonathan instead? Don't overthink it. Like, Omar did the right thing and didn't do that. Mm-hmm. High in last week was like, oh no, obviously it's Romeo, but maybe it shouldn't be. And then like talks himself out of it. And again, as you said, it aligned with his previously stated strategy of like, keep the strong people. He was perfectly willing to vote out Romeo their vote before. So it didn't make sense that he would necessarily go out of his way to keep Romeo. Because again, the Roxroy thing, you can get rid of him. He's not really a threat to your game just by suggesting that alliance.
Yeah, anything is an asset. Because like if they keep Roxroy, get rid of Romeo, then who are they going after this week? Like, it should be easy for a player like High, except that he'd have to contend with a player like Omar, who is a better player. We'll get into that. To just be like, we should get rid of Roxroy. He wants to turn on this alliance that we have, where, you, Drea, and you, Lindsay, are more important to me than, Roxroy's, all men's alliance. Like, he's giving himself as a target, but you didn't have to shoot it just yet, especially in that smaller group situation with all the unknowns. So, yeah, I really think that's where it all fell apart. I think anything else that, like, the mistakes that were almost like kind of being laid more like an editorial that he wasn't getting his way, that's fine.
Yep.
If he just hadn't voted out Roxroy. Now, what's interesting, though, is people both, and maybe it's not the same people, eventually all comments just blend into some monolith idea of mine, except for my own, which are special. Are on one hand being like, oh man, High really isn't getting his way very much. I don't like that. The same hand being like, oh man, Omar's constantly trying to get his own way all the time. I don't know if I like that. It's like, which is it? Somewhere in the middle.
Right. The interesting thing for me this week, and it might have been just a little bit of letting High get clowned, is that, he pulls out his fake idol. Actually, doesn't he? I shouldn't say pulls it out. He doesn't. No. He says that he has an idol. Lays out this argument to Jonathan, like, don't worry, I got you. You're safe. Like, look at me. I'm a genius. I kept Jonathan from playing his shot in the dark with my idol. And he had a little trinket he could have shown, right? Like, he actually had something. He could have been like, I got you. Didn't even do that. It's just like, this big dummy. I've tricked him. This is great. I'm a genius. And very next scene, Jonathan, who, we have established, not a dummy at all, says like, yeah, he just told me he had an idol. He's totally lying. He's not going to play it on me. And I believe was it Omar or was it Mike that he was confessing that to?
I believe it was Omar, yeah.
Again, exactly.
Again.
So consider who he's talking to there. I get what he was going for, but once again, blows up in his face.
All right, at this point, listeners have probably heard that my voice is a little different. I've been battling bronchitis for about a week now. Somehow in 2022, people still catch bronchitis, even if they've never caught, the big one. So just give me a second here. I know what people want, but I just need to. How about them fake idols, though?
We're getting to some next level Inception fake idol shit.
I love that scene. It was great. And I know, and these are probably live comments that was happening. People are like, oh man, they're really clowning High a bit too much. And look, man, I like the guy too. I still do. I want him to come back for future seasons. But he was completely and thoroughly outplayed. That's what happens. The clown edit doesn't just happen to the people that you don't like. Sometimes it's just the game. Sometimes it's got to be you if you fail on the level that High failed on this week. Like, he was just completely owned. What are you going to do?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he was convinced he was playing better than he actually was. It's not like that's uncommon. I mean, most survivors or the people that they cast for this show are very convinced of their own greatness, right? That's like part of the reason that they're cast, like lack of self-awareness and overconfidence in yourself. Not necessarily a bad thing for either TV or for playing this game. So, fine. I mean, I don't think that the fact that he got a little bit clowned here puts a damper on the rest of his season, which was otherwise pretty good.
I thought it led to a lot of fun in an episode. Not necessarily as much fun as smearing fake blood all over yourself, but still fun. Which you have to remember, like, that's who High is. He's a bit of a showman, and that's great. That's what made him a great presence on the show. That's why I think he'd be a great presence as a returnee. I think he could do well as a returnee. Maybe a small bit of humbling will allow him to be a little more observant of attacks. But again, maybe he just got outplayed by a really great player. These things happen. But yeah, I don't mind that the edit did him dirty, because I don't believe the edit did do him dirty.
What?
I think the edit was an accurate reflection of the situation.
And how did you feel with him applauding the crowd when they voted him out? Was that a I'm not mad, I'm laughing?
A little bit,
yeah.
But also good for him.
Yeah, sure. I don't think he was genuinely like proud of them in that moment. It was very much like, oh, you didn't hurt me. But at the same time, like, I do think that he was genuinely blindsided and was like, oh shit.
Yes.
Well, you got me.
Yeah, I think like part of it was genuine, but part of it was, no, you're not going to take this from me. I'm still going to go out on my terms. Right. And, I'm still the star that I believe myself to be, which you are, High. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And yeah, good for you. A much better way to go out than, stomping and all that. Or like the seething rage like Chanel had, for instance. So.
Right. Although, if you're going to be upset, go the full Michaela, right? Throw the hair and what? And look in someone's face as they're voting for you.
Yeah, or call somebody a small man. Like, there are different things. Yeah. But I thought it was a good exit. I do agree with your assessment. So, yeah, obviously I am all in on Omar. And I believe he has, if he can keep doing this, he has a very good chance at winning, as much as people have chances at winning. And again, I'm out of the prediction game, except that I think Lindsay's probably the winner of this season. What do you think?
You big Lindsay stan over there?
Irregardless, which is not a word at all. I threw that in just to really bother people. It doesn't matter how I feel about her. I think the edit is telling us this in that they had no time for her for a good percentage of the show, and now she's still here, and there's an uptick, and I'm just not going to fight it anymore.
Yep.
Lindsay's your winner.
That's how Edgic works. Yes, exactly.
I don't even care about Edgic. That's how Survivor decides that women get to win this show.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine after Erica last season, like making this your winner's edit? Come on.
They're repeating everything else, John.
That's true.
Why stop there?
Keep running all back. Just everything. Run it back again. Basically the same season.
Where's the lie?
The Lindsay thing, it was kind of funny. Like she's probably the last name that jumps to mind when this episode started, as to like maybe her or Romeo. They're like neck and neck towards the bottom there of people that you're remembering are still around. Mm-hmm. And so then suddenly the visibility spike, right? And it's like, oh, huge. Wow, you want a challenge? Oh, that's good. Yeah. No, and she's got some confessionals out. Oh, she's talking. Huh, that's interesting. And she's not a target, so that's weird. Oh, she won another challenge and getting more Lindsay content, talking about some trinkets that she's got. This is weird. Just a sudden appearance of Lindsay, just out of the background into the foreground, and then possibly for the next few episodes, she might just slide right back into the background.
That is enough.
That's what you need.
I am only half kidding with this, that I fully believe that Lindsay is a contender to win this season. Yeah, will she win? I don't know, man. Again, I don't do that. And I actually think this season's done a good job in building to the point where I think anyone has a plausible path to victory at this point. There's some I don't think will.
Right.
But, both from what has transpired so far, along with what can transpire from here, and also factoring in how random Survivor has been with this stuff of late. I think she could win easily because I just saw things like have to happen. The fact that she was the least featured character of the season for a large portion of it apparently means nothing. So this visibility spike is the beginning of the Lindsay winner, and then other people can say that they saw it 2 weeks ago. And if they do say that, just a warning to everyone that apparently this season is heavily spoiled.
Yep. But we remain unspoiled, so we won't.
Completely unspoiled. It's really easy when you don't care about anybody else's opinion of Survivor but your own.
Exactly, yeah. And so then when people are like, oh man, are you really that big of a fan? You're not crushing all this preseason content. And yeah, but I also avoided all the spoilers, so in your face.
There you go. That's right. All right, let's talk about some more people.
Let's talk about my girl, Drea, who I love unconditionally. And in this episode, she gave me gold. This is exactly what I want from Drea. She gave us a confessional where she said, you know what? I gotta stop playing this game so emotionally. And I almost had to pause the TV for my laughter because I was like, What just happened? What did I just witness? This is Drea too emotional? What does it look like when she dials it down? What even could that be?
Yeah, and you can almost think obviously the last we saw of Drea was a highly emotionally charged moment.
Sure.
But that's clearly not what she's talking about because in her mind, it is her emotional wear her heart on her sleeves, make her decisions based on, friendship and love that led to that point of her having to play the idol and say those things. When previously, let's disregard even our thesis about the way that she speaks and how it is, an athlete being interviewed against their will. Multiple times in the season, she does not even just go to the I'm not here to make friends well, but more, I don't even know these people. Why would I care, Jeff? About people that, might have been damn, Drea, I thought we were allies. Yeah. With Romeo, the person that she knew the most, the person she combined with. Basically, new phone who this the second they hit that beat.
Yep.
This is the person who's now gonna cut out the emotion.
And also the one who was arguing with Maryanne at Tribal Council and could have easily given Maryanne an out, right? Could have been okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Would not let it happen. Just, nope, we don't agree though. And Maryanne's oh, okay, but it's similar thinking. Nope. Not no quarter for Maryanne whatsoever. This is just the person that she is. And this is her playing too emotionally? Really?
So what is the less emotional Drea that we're going to get? She doesn't even get the heh, 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 heh laugh that she throws in there every once in a while. Is it like what we saw when she lost the challenge, which was just the most robotic response to failure I've ever seen? Just what?
It was so good. It's the ball rolls off the side, catches it, looks away, does not change the expression on her face. Absolutely anything could have happened in that moment. You wouldn't know. She reacted 0.
Amazing.
Oh.
I want a final tribal council with her and Omar. And Omar's bringing people to tears with the emotional connections that they had. And they're all cheering for him. And Drea's just going to be what's going on here?
Yes. Drea's I'm not your friend. I voted you out. Here's what I did.
We will never speak to each other after this
I cannot
moment.
wait to cut you out of my life.
Yes, I voted you out. I would have done it twice if they'd allow me. What are your regrets in this game, Drea? That I didn't get to vote these 2 out about.
God, I love it. She's so fun. And I get that, not everybody necessarily loves this because it's, not the most over the top performance from a Survivor, but it is high comedy to me. I am a huge Drea fan.
Yeah. It's in one way, GameBot to the next level. But another way, it's not even GameBot. It's something different because it doesn't even just be like, oh, the game's the game. It's like just that yeah. It's like she's a Terminator or something. Just like, I do not understand these human emotions that you guys feel. It's really something.
Yeah. It's like, why would you even want to connect with me? I don't get it. We're playing a game out here. I'm going to destroy you. The end. This
is a game where you vote people out and lie and backstab. What's the big deal? Yeah. Why aren't we doing more of that?
Oh, so good. I just hook it to my veins. I'm a huge Drea fan.
I could see her winning too, because she still has like all the paths to get to the end, one of which just got a little bit stronger, and we're running out of time. I think next week, actually, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, it could happen. I do struggle trying to find like a jury being like really excited to vote for Drea.
Yes.
And her reinforcing that belief in that final tribal council. Like, I can see them going in and then just getting nothing from her to the point where it's like, well, maybe it should be Maryanne or something, but I don't know.
Right.
I'm interested to see it.
It's kind of like one of those things where she's going to come in and like maybe she'll have an awesome resume, right? But then like it's the interview and you're like, wow, I don't know if I want to work with that person. It just gave me nothing. Like, blank slate, nothing. And I can picture people being like, she played a really good game, but on the other hand, she's sitting next to Mike or Omar or Maryanne, who like actually seem to care about me as a human being. And I don't know. I don't know if I want to give her the $1 million when that person has smiled at me before and like asked about my family.
Yeah. Imagine how terse Drea's emails must be. Like, not even those bullshit pleasantries that we pepper through our office emails that often translate into "you're an idiot." None of that. Just
per my last email, data point, send. Not even a signature. Didn't have time for that shit.
Oh man, I love it.
So
let's talk about her opposite.
Yes, the polar opposite, Maryanne, who is always on 10. I gotta admit, like, after last week, which was tough to watch, and like it was tough to watch Maryanne go from like her like bubbly, ebullient self, just like overflowing with joy, to like having to talk about tough times in her life, right? And so then this week, as she's played her idol last week, trying to appease a crowd that, like I said, she's never going to appease, and it's like, we actually got justice served. Like, it was so weird. I'm so unfamiliar with this feeling at this point, after many years, recently especially, of life showing me that, justice is not really a thing that often happens, right? So Maryanne getting an idol right back, and not only that, but like people not knowing that she has it, was like, wait a minute, what? That seems like a good thing? Like, something good just happened? Like, she was rewarded for doing something. It was wild. Like, I didn't even know if it was real. These things don't happen anymore.
Yeah, what tremendous karmic balance that was.
Yeah.
And what she was effectively able to do is launder her idol,
Yeah.
It went from this, half liability because everyone knows about it to nobody knows. She's got the power of an idol all to herself. And frankly, I don't think anybody would even suspect. Like, in their minds, Maryanne does not have an idol. I don't even know if they'll start to like play as though she could in the way that you always should. That's just because they saw her just throw it away. And I think they're also underestimating her quite a bit. And they probably also have a history of, well, if she does, she'll tell us. And she has said she won't. I hope she sticks to that. And I think she might.
Yeah. I feel like you can almost see her, like, her hardening, right? Like, her game is hardening and improving through, like, forged by fire type thing, right? Like, she just went through this tough moment, and now she's like, okay, well, it's time to drop this nice girl Maryanne and throw in the killer instinct. Like, it's not quite there, right? But you can feel like a path being laid out where suddenly Maryanne's like, you know what? A little bit of Drea in my life wouldn't hurt.
Well, at the beginning of the game, obviously it's a team thing, and she really embraced that. But with the knowledge that she was, at the bottom of the team. Not complete. She survived 1 vote. Who knows? Maybe she could have survived 2 if there had been. But she certainly wasn't going to survive 3 without playing an idol. And I think that experience and the fact that she hasn't been a key decision maker in here, the fact that just yesterday one of the members of that alliance would be like, "You can be the decoy," is enough for her to be like, "Nah, I'm gonna do things on my own for myself." And bravo for that.
Yeah. So one weird thing, which you kind of alluded to just there are still 4 of her original tribe mates left, which is kind of strange. No one has brought that up. Do you think that this is like a legit, they're covertly arranging this? Or is this just luck, circumstance that, they still somehow have all 4 of them left and every other tribe is getting decimated?
So I do think there was some purpose to it. I think we saw that when Omar worked to keep Maryanne and the first vote. That it's still this way, I think there's some luck or shifting tides, because clearly members within Taku wouldn't mind voting out other members within Taku, specifically Lindsay voting out Jonathan. But it is interesting that like everybody else is like turning on people right away or just dropping them or ignoring them, because Drea hasn't voted out Romeo, but she's certainly been willing to. Whereas that 4 who should have been the more dangerous 4. Remember, back in the pre-merge, everybody on the internet, Maryanne herself, was all like, "Oh no, how dare you talk about what a strong, tribe we are, what a strong 4 we are." I believe Jonathan was the one to do that. You don't do that.
Yep.
Well, they're still here, So it is just the simple not looking to vote each other out. Then, it's not even aggressive. We couldn't. But even when like the big alliance was coming together, the body, they're like, "Oh yeah, we can get rid of Chanel. We should get rid of Chanel. She's a snake. You can't believe her." Ika was like, "Tori's the worst. You already met her. You know what I'm saying." But Taku was like, "Well, if it had to be someone, I guess it could be Maryanne." And then when it was time for it to be Maryanne because of, time travel and all that, Omar was like, "But no. How about no?
Right.
It's not going to be Maryanne, and it's not going to be Jonathan." And as a result, he still has all the people that think they're with him. And a lot of those other power players do not have the people who thought they were with them.
Well, speaking of... Oh, shit. That was a terrible transition. I thought you said something in there that you did not say, partly because I tune you out sometimes. Anyway, next week we got a preview. And that preview seems to suggest that something horrible is coming our way. The do or die, which honestly, I had genuinely forgotten was a thing last season. Looks like it's coming.
I had almost forgotten, but people have been dreading it. So they're like, "Oh, right, that stupid thing."
Yeah, and so I saw that and I was like, "Oh shit, that's right." Like, can you imagine if that's what ends up taking out Omar or Drea? Like, I'm gonna be pissed. I mean, what an absolutely, like, we probably complained about this last season too, but what an insane game design to like make it so that you want your players to not take the risk of competing in challenges that you spent hours designing and building, right? Like, just, I don't even get what motivated this as a game. Like,
also that you can like end your episode with a, game of 3-card Monty.
Yeah. And just no emotional stakes. It's pure luck and gambling. Like, there's some like closure to a vote, right? Like, we're seeing like, oh, we've seen how people feel about each other and who values what and what their strategies might be. This is just like, oh, which one feels lucky to you? Like, just, there's already enough of an element of luck in this game. Why do you need to be more overt about it?
Yeah, no, it is completely shitty. And I have a feeling that it is going to eliminate somebody, unlike last time.
Yeah.
Where it ended up saving the person who was going to go out otherwise. Who knows? The problem, people who want to do the math, it could be, just because it didn't happen last time doesn't mean it will happen this time. Every Shot in the Dark has also told us that. And actually, I have a thought on Shot in the Dark before we end here. But I have a feeling like it might. And that'll suck no matter who it is. I'm less worried for my guy because I feel like Omar won't do the challenge. I feel like he'll be able to puzzle that one out, that this is not an acceptable risk for where he is at in the game, and he has enough social capital that nobody will resent him for doing that.
Yeah.
Would it suck to take out Drea? Yes, because I enjoy her presence on the show, but in some ways would it also be poetic, because she has amassed a bunch of game capital solely through luck, and sometimes the luck goes the other way, right?
Right.
Unlike Maryanne, she hasn't actually been all that good at finding stuff. Most of her stuff was acquired in ways that only she could acquire it, right?
Yep.
She was at the Chippewa and she was on the sit-out bench. She did eventually find that idol, but she was the last person to find it. Maryanne was the first, and then she found this one as well. Again, it would be, the show shouldn't do this, but in terms of, the person who's had the most positive luck in finding all this random shit, then suddenly being the person that's befelled by also something random, then it's like, well, that was her entire game. And it was just, the luck runs out, right? But it shouldn't happen, and it sucks. But one thing I do want to happen, if somebody goes home, is I want them to be all like, oh, the Monty Hall problem. Oh, I know what to do here.
Switch.
And then they'd make the switch, and everybody at home would be like, yeah, see, they know what they do. I took this in statistics class or whatever stupid class it would be, and then fucking fail. Go and see what your math does to you now, because it doesn't matter on a one-person shot. It doesn't matter. This is what frustrates me so much. Hy was doing it in his extra interviews again, where it's like, I had a 25% chance of winning that rock draw, so of course I'd do it. And it's like, yeah, 25% is lower than 75%. But they keep acting like their opposition has a 75% chance of losing when they're the only one.
Right.
Tyson does the same thing, right? It's 25% for everyone. It's not a team sport. Everyone has a 25% chance. So whether, one of those people leaves or, you leave, it doesn't matter. They're still, they're not playing a team game. So every time that somebody does a shot in the dark, it's 1 in 6. Every time somebody does the Monty Hall thing, it's still a chance, and a pretty high chance, that you could go. So playing percentages, if that's the way you find comfort, great, fine. It's a random guess anyway. Whatever way you want to do it is fine. But the people are like, that's the right move, you have to do it. It's like, you got one shot, so the math doesn't mean anything to you if you lose.
Well, and that's the thing, is the math on the Monty Hall problem works out over a lot of iterations, right?
Yes.
But you have one iteration here. So I get it. Yeah. And there is some small degree of advantage to switching after you've seen one of them. But again, it's over time that does work out where you're going to have a greater advantage by then switching. In this one instance, like, your odds aren't great no matter what. So yeah, you just have to roll.
So there's no great play. It's a stupid game.
Yes.
It's a stupid way to do the show. But I would just love it if hopefully, God willing, the only 2 times it's played, one person does it wrong and it works, and one person does it quote unquote right and it fails. That would be fun for me because I am hostile towards numbers.
You hate the math.
Quick thought about Shot in the Dark is when it looked like there was a chance that Jonathan could be doing it, like if he was worried about it, my heart filled with dread. And I believe we probably discussed this when the whole thing was first done, when they went to fucking picking out scrolls versus rolling a dice, the dice that they are provided, is if Jonathan pulled the safe, we will never, ever hear the end of the conspiracy theories about it, which is why you can't do it this way. Or it can't just be a bag of scrolls. It's like, oh yeah, I bet when Jonathan went up there, suddenly it was all, 12 safety scrolls. Much like people assume that like the buffs in All-Stars were arranged such a way to separate Rob and Amber, which is a conspiracy theory there, I almost believe. But yeah, it's like, you can't do that. And that's just when I thought for a second that Jonathan might play it, I'm like, oh God, if he wins this, we'll never hear the rest of it. And like, the discourse.
Well, if you're going to go with that theory that production is so in love with Jonathan, I feel like last episode really took the bloom off that rose. I mean, overall, sure, it's been a positive edit for him. But, there's definitely some cracks in that facade.
Yeah, but that's edit versus production, right? Production is live on scene. They don't know later. So they might have been like, no, let's keep our golden god. Again, like, I don't think that. I don't think Survivor rigs it so that their favorites can win. Because they'd be really shitty at it if you look at the success rate of their, quote unquote favorites and the people who win. But that's not going to stop it from being the discourse. And that's more, that's a bigger concern to me. It's just like, we're doing this again. So I hope Jonathan never plays the shot in the dark, or if he does, that he doesn't get it.
It would give you some much needed ammunition, though. Because as I said, there's been a baseline level of enjoyment in this season. Like, imagine the fire in your belly when you have to come out against the conspiracy theorists, right? You're out here throwing heaters if that happens.
I might just be like, what? What do you want from me? There's so many real world problems to worry about. Everything is terrible.
Yeah.
Can we not bring it to this stupid show unless necessary? But what we can bring to the show is a bunch of comments that are great.
I was going to say, speaking of the discourse, if you would like to engage in some good discourse, positive discourse even, and get your comments upvoted instantly by sexy robots, you can do that on Purple Rock Podcast.
What? They're real, John. They're my biggest fans. Well, don't destroy this for me.
I love that people who do not comment on our site have no idea what we're talking about. Our comment system has a weird thing of late where I guess someone has coded sexy fake accounts to go through and upvote your comments. Not to spam our comment site, but to upvote your comments. Just
no.
Bizarre.
My demographic are young ladies in bikinis who think my observations of Survivor are upload worthy.
I assume that's the majority of our listening audience. Is just
yeah. Those are the silent majority. They're the people who comment, but we always told people that the numbers are much bigger than that. There are people who listen and don't comment. Those are them.
That's them. They're finally coming through, and they all have single word names. All very traditionally feminine names, all just traditionally attractive pictures. All real. Gotta be real.
So real.
Anyway, you can get upvotes from them at purplerockpodcast.com. You can get real, actual human likes on Twitter if you say something cool to @PurpleRockPod. That is the show. @PurpleRockJohn is me, and @PurpleRockAndy is Andy. Anything else, Andy?
Hit the theme music.